So welcome to today's webinar. This is our fourth webinar of our series. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Today I have our special guest, Lauren Clark from the Ottawa Hospital and Bridge C14. A quick little disclaimer, we are at the hospital right now, so if you hear a page go off, we have no control. So welcome to our webinar series. We've been doing a few of them now. It's kind of just to get the word out on different organizations, products, services that we've come across within Ottawa, helping to serve seniors within Ottawa. And so just a little bit of introduction about who exactly I am. So I'm Rachel and I'm with Solva Senior Living. And with Solva, we do quite a few things. Our main focus is we do retirement home search assistance for families and seniors. And with that search assistance, we do a lot of education, navigation, and support and advocacy. So our services are 100% free, no obligations with the client. And how it works is the retirement home partners we have within Ottawa cover the cost of the search. None of our advisors are paid commissions, so we do it all unbiased, really looking for what the client needs. And so that's enough about us. I'm going to introduce our guest. And so I just want to let everyone know, so you have, just a little housekeeping, you have a little chat box on the side of your computer there in the webinar. You can ask questions there. So we're going to do about 25 minutes of us talking, and then we'll leave 5 minutes at the end for questions. If your microphone does turn on, please mute it. I would appreciate that. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Lauren. So this is Lauren Clark. She's a social worker at the Ottawa Hospital, but she's also the president and CEO of an organization called Bridge C14. So she has a master's in social work and a certificate in dementia studies. She's also a member of the MAID team at the Ottawa Hospital, and this has been since 2016. So today we're going to talk about the one of many hats she wears, Bridge C14. So Bridge C14 has been providing compassionate care and connections with those with lived experiences with MAID. So we're going to start off. So I'm going to get you, Lauren. First off, what exactly is MAID?
Okay. So medical assistance in dying is it's a medical procedure to intentionally end someone's life at their request. So it has been legal since June of 2016. I've been a member of our Ottawa Hospital MAID program since its inception in 2016 as the legalization and framework and policies and procedures were being put together. So one of the things is that I really advocated strongly for the role of social work and created a psychosocial assessment that can be used by healthcare teams when assessing patients and their families when looking at medical assistance in dying.
Okay. And then so we mentioned Bill C14 and your organization is Bridge C14. So what exactly is that bill?
So Bill C14 are the requirements that someone must meet in order to be eligible for MAID. So there are 6 requirements. Some of these are being looked at in the legislation right now, so we may see some changes coming forward. But right now they need to have coverage under a provincial health plan. So they cannot be anyone outside of Canada. Only Canadian residents can access MAID. They need to be 18 years of age or older and capable of making the decision. And at this point in time, they need to be capable from the beginning when they make the request all the way into the time of provision.
Okay.
They need to have a grievous and irremediable medical condition. They need to make a voluntary request, and this can be done in writing. And then they need to be assessed by 2 independent assessors. That could either be a physician or a nurse practitioner. Mm-hmm. They're independent of one another. And they have to, and their request form has to be signed by 2 independent witnesses as well. sometimes that's the struggle with individuals who are applying for MAID, that they may not have anyone who can actually witness some of the forms. We know some of our population doesn't have supports, or their supports are family members who wouldn't be eligible to be a witness. So in those cases, Dying with Dignity does offer a voluntary witness program. So if you're ever working with someone who doesn't have someone who could sign the forms, contacting Dying with Dignity, and they can set that up for you. And after the 2 medical assessments are done, there is a 10-day waiting period. So they consider it a reflection period. And during that time, it's important for the individual who's requested and their supports to have access to anything they need to manage their affairs, to make sure that they are aware of other treatment options if they need to, that they can also then opt out. So some of the patients who request MAID don't always fulfill it and don't always access, whether that's because of their own choice or that they've lost capacity. But the team, the MAID program really supports those patients throughout their journey.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, that was a great overview. So with MAID and Bridge C14, how did you yourself get involved with all of this?
So when MAID first was coming out and the government was putting together legislation and coming up with Bill C-14, one of the patients I was working with here at the hospital actually approached me, and she was very interested in accessing MAID and had asked me to be a part of her journey. So I approached our team and said, this is a time where I think social work really could be advantageous to this patient. She's requested this. And they saw that the role of social work really fit into the program, and really was a nice tie-in with managing those psychosocial aspects that we know in healthcare aren't always addressed, or people don't always know how to address them, how to ask those questions. So it was a good time for social work to get involved. And like I said, from there, it's really been creating the program and developing our social work role as a whole. We're not involved with all patients here at the hospital who access MAID, but when there are identifiable issues, we're available. We have a small team of social workers here, and we get involved and assist.
Wonderful. And then, so how did that evolve into Bridge C14?
So my role with Bridge C14, and full disclosure, it is separate from my role here at the hospital. I'm not financially compensated for it, but I had met with the founder, Jan Ditchfield. We were actually presenting at a conference together. She had talked about her experience as a family member. Her mom actually had accessed MAID, and she found that there was a real gap in terms of the supports available to those in the community. And so she talked about creating this organization for those connections with others with lived experience. And I said, sign me up. I want to be a part of this, recognizing that those community supports were really lacking, especially initially on. And so I joined as a board member, which then over the last 6 months or so has developed into me being more in the leadership role as president and CEO. And at this point in time, I'm actually the only member of the organization, but I do have advisors that I can turn to, either previous board members or other members of a healthcare team that I can touch base with as needed.
Oh, wonderful. And so we can go a little bit maybe more into Bridge C14. So what exactly, you kind of touched on a little bit about what you guys do, but maybe you can go in a little bit more in depth about what exactly it is.
Absolutely. So we really focus on building those connections with those with lived experience. So wanting those who are either a family member or even a patient themselves who's early on in their journey to be able to reach out to others who understand and appreciate what this experience is like throughout all stages of assisted death. So that could be pre-MAID for those who are there during MAID, how do they get the support they need, and then post-MAID, mostly for the family or loved ones, to make sure that they can be connected with those who understand and appreciate. So we want to create this culture where it's dignity, there's choice, that your grief, anything that comes up related to MAID is honored and valued and respected by those, because we understand. We've been there, and we want to provide that safe place.
Okay, wonderful. And so What areas do you guys service? Are you guys nationwide? Are you just local?
So we're a national nonprofit organization,
Okay.
which is one of the nice parts about Bridge C14. We recognize that it wasn't just local to Ottawa or even the Champlain region. We know that there are those across Canada who are relying on support from others who may not be able to tap into that support themselves for whatever reason. Perhaps it's rural, perhaps it's financial. So we wanted to make sure we made it a national focus. So we actually have groups running now primarily in Ontario and British Columbia, but we are looking at moving forward with creating groups on the East Coast and ideally having groups running and connections for those who have this lived experience across the board. So in all provinces, wherever you're at, we want to make sure that we have a forum for you to receive the support.
And based on kind of the nationwide aspect of things, have you noticed the difference between different provinces?
Absolutely. So there are certain provinces where MAID is much more talked about. There are more liberal views about MAID.
Mm-hmm.
We know that right now in Ontario, it represents about 2%, or if not a little bit more, of the deaths.
Okay.
In British Columbia, we're looking at closer to 5%, if not more.
Wow.
So the need is staggered across Canada, but we know in every province there are those who are accessing MAID or family members who may be coming, let's say, to Ottawa to support their loved one, who then go back to their home province. Who can they connect with if they don't have a MAID team there? So we really do see the volumes increasing. We have close to 200 members right now with the organization. And those who step forward and say, you know what, 3 years ago, this was my experience. I'm now ready to fully support those who are going through it now. Okay. I've gone through my journey, I've grieved, and now I'm at a place to really support. So we have a number of volunteers who have stepped forward to say, how can I offer more? What can I do? And so we're growing every day, which is wonderful. And the need is there.
And that's awesome. I mean, it just shows how successful and useful it's been that people are stepping up and wanting to share their experiences and continue to support the organization. So we kind of touched a little bit. I'm just going to pop through on what the Bridge C14 does. Let's go like a little more into detail about why someone would seek services from Bridge C14.
So typically the feedback we've been receiving from family members is that perhaps with their loved one's MAID provision, they weren't able to talk about it. Perhaps it was the patient's decision not to have the information shared. And so that loved one is then sitting with these feelings and not knowing who in a safe place could they talk to about their grief or their experience. And so a lot of them are coming saying, they may have been stigmatized in their own community, or perhaps their own social supports don't support this. So they're looking for those who are going to be non-judgmental. So they come to us and they say, I'm at a place where my loved one has gone through this. I'm struggling with this grief. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to say. Or even very early on in the journey and saying, what have others done? How have you connected? What supports are available in your own community? And I think that it's also saying, what are the resources? What are the gaps in resources? Who can help to build this and build the capacity? So it's, we have a lot of individuals who are coming and just wanting to seek out advice from others. And one of the nice parts about the organization is I'm, as president and CEO, I'm very hands-off. I take more of an administrative role, and it's more, I monitor the forum. So we have our Facebook groups per se. Somebody may post a question there, and you'll see a number of responses from others who have said, I've gone through this. We get questions around, I have young children. What can I say or do? How do we proceed with this? Or my family member doesn't want anybody to know. Who, have anybody else experiences? What was that like for you? I feel like it's a secret. How do I talk about it in a safe place? So it's all walks of life. It's all populations, cultures, religions are coming forward and saying, we just want help.
Yeah. And yeah, that's awesome. Like the idea of an online forum and seeking through a more accessible way. Mm-hmm. You guys also have in-person supports as well?
Yes, so we offer grief and bereavement groups. So in Ottawa in particular, we have partnered with Bereaved Families mm-hmm. and Dying with Dignity, and Bereaved Families offers a MAID-specific grief and bereavement group monthly. We also have family meetup style, so more informal supports, where sometimes it's just immediate in a coffee shop, sit down, connect. They may talk about MAID, they may not. And then others who connect with each other on an online forum, but maybe then extend that and say, you know, they email one another, they call one another, or they may meet up on their own. So those connections are developed in whatever capacity that the individual needs or wants. Yeah. So there's informal, formal, and then, you know, more of our online presence.
Yeah. So it seems like you guys are pretty flexible and whatever works best for the clients and reaching out.
And sometimes we'll have organizations who say, we're looking at starting something in our community. Can Bridge C14 help to support that? And we will partner up with someone. We have some guidelines if someone wants to start a group, what that might look like or feel like for them, how they can set it up. We don't set any specific rules or regulations. Mm-hmm. We have some frameworks, but it really is up to the organization. We take more of a hands-off approach and are there to support, advertise, provide them materials and resources, but really the management of the group is up to the individual or individuals who are wanting to facilitate. So it's really self-run, and it's that peer-to-peer support.
Yeah. And then, so if you don't mind me asking, have you seen a trend whether people are seeking services and reaching out before the process of MAID happening, or is it more after the process?
Some of the groups, one in particular in the West Coast, and I was in touch with a facilitator recently, and she said she's seeing a volume increase in those who are in the very early stages of MAID, who are now wanting to connect with others who have been down the journey to say, so that they know what to expect or anticipate.
Yeah.
The more prepared someone is pre-MAID, mm-hmm. the easier it is to cope and grieve afterwards. And so it's really important for them in their own journey is that they say, I need to know what to expect. I need to know what this is going to look like so that I can help to support my loved one in their decision. We know that whenever a decision to proceed with MAID is made, that there is a ripple effect, and it really starts with the patient. They're very clear in their intentions, and it's more the questions or concerns that come up from the loved ones. So they're seeking out that support, and we are starting to see more early on, especially when there isn't social work involvement. We're very fortunate in Ottawa that we have a program here, mm-hmm. but other communities don't have that social work support, so they're really looking to peers for that.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. And looking ahead kind of at the future of Bridge C14, I know you've started your role not too long ago, still new. What are some kind of things you guys are working on right now that you see going to develop in the next few months or years?
So really, when I first came on as president and CEO, my focus was how do we hone in on those groups? We know that the groups are important. So again, creating those guidelines and framework and connecting with communities who may have made specific supports or who don't, who are interested, and just trying to build capacity around that. One of the other things that I found is healthcare professionals and organizations are saying, I don't know where I fit in, and I'd like to connect with other professionals. So that was something that I really wanted to start as well as a group for those who are working in the field, whether mm-hmm. it's in a volunteer capacity or a professional capacity, to say, here's a group where you can have a community of practice. I think we have to build capacity, and we need to educate. We need to, the misconceptions around MAID are sometimes the most challenging for people. And so we have to clear the misconceptions. And a lot of that is providing that education, the resource information. So it's really building that within the organization. And again, ideally, I'd like to see at least one of our Bridge C14 groups in every province.
Yeah.
And that's my goal in the next 5 years, is that we at least have one group running in provinces in particular that don't have those supports, or also building past our social media, which a lot of our work is done in Facebook or on our online portfolio, is to say, how do we develop that more? Not everybody's on social media.
Mm-hmm.
How else can we connect? And so that's sort of where I'm starting and getting the ball rolling, and we're seeing it grow.
Yeah, wonderful. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the healthcare professionals and that aspect, you're seeing that more as like an educational thing you want to provide,
or if someone is struggling and they have a particularly difficult case, or something's not sitting well with them, and perhaps they don't feel comfortable reaching out to their own colleagues, and they want more of an anonymous sort of approach to this, they can reach out to me and say, here's what I'm struggling with, and I can help put them in touch with other professionals who are also involved in this work, so that we know we're all doing this work together. Some are doing it more in isolation than others, and I want to make sure that everybody across the board knows you've got somebody to turn to in that safe, secure way, to reduce those feelings of isolation. Again, not only for patients and their families, but professionals as well. It's difficult. It takes an emotional toll, and the ability to debrief or kind of rationalize or reflect on things is important, and especially with others who are doing the work.
And right now, are you aware of any resources out there other than the ones that you guys are starting?
This Dying with Dignity does have some resources. They're more advocating for issues around MAID, but they do have some supports available. And, you know, we have some connections with other smaller organizations. Some hospices have now come in contact with us to say, we're sort of doing this already, but how do we build our capacity ourselves? So we are seeing that growth, and more of the smaller communities coming forward and saying, we need more, we need some support behind us.
Yeah, and then going a little bit further into that. So how exactly, so if someone is either a health professional or they're going through the journey as a family member, friend, how would they access the resources that Bridge C14 has?
I would say starting with our website, so bridgec14.org. From there, you can subscribe to our site. We do put out a quarterly newsletter. The next one will be coming out soon. It often gives some updates about what's happening, what the goals are. There's also email. I receive at least 5 emails a day from individuals saying, how can we talk? Can we do this? So I make myself available that way, and try to, if I can't answer the questions, at least connect them with other resources that can. We have our Facebook groups. And so somebody can apply to our Facebook groups. They need to answer certain questions in order to be approved. But that's one way of connecting. We have one solely for family members and loved ones, and we have one that's solely for professionals. We keep them separate. And again, I sort of more moderate than intervene, and there's lots of activity there. We do have a Twitter page. It's less active, and just I'm finding more that we are getting more on Facebook, and we have our online forum. But definitely our website, we have resource information there. We have our links to the support groups that may be happening in your own community, or if you're working with someone or you're even a family member yourselves, that you can, link them up with a support group in their local area. We have some podcasts on there. They are older. That's something we may want to start up again, is the podcast.
I would highly recommend it. I did listen to the one that you did, and it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's, I think people need to know that this is a conversation that can be had. It doesn't have to be something you shy away from. It doesn't have to be a taboo subject. The more we talk about it, the easier it is. And I could talk all day about it. I'm a strong advocate for MAID, strong advocate for the role of social work, but also a strong advocate for building those connections.
Wonderful. And thank you. So a lot of us talking. Does anyone have any questions for Lauren, either about Bridge C14 or MAID? Feel free to ask in the comment box below. We have about 5 minutes for questions. And someone's typing. So if you guys don't ask questions, I'll ask Lauren a few questions as well. And so maybe I'll start off also just, we talked earlier about kind of that role of social workers and kind of that aspect in the MAID journey. Is there much, like, have you seen much in terms of like the college or other social workers kind of getting involved with this MAID journey?
Actually, I received a phone call not long ago from a social worker out in Saskatchewan, and in that province, they don't have any formal social work involvement. And they're looking at the Ottawa Hospital and the program we've developed here, and trying to tap into our knowledge base so that they can get one started in their own in Saskatchewan itself. So I think that's what we're seeing is the growth, not only the volumes of requests for those coming forward with MAID, but also the number of professionals that want to join or want to participate as they learn more. And I'll always say there is conscientious objection. You do not have to agree. You don't always have to support, but there are certain rules. So if you're a professional, it's being mindful of what your college or the standards are for the work that you do or your organization. And just being okay with that and saying, you know what, you may not have to support it yourself. Your morals and values may not be aligned with this. That's okay. But it's how do we still continue to provide that patient-centered care, which I think is first and foremost for any of us who work in the field. And certainly, just feeling supported as a healthcare professional in the role that you have, whether it's, truly integrated in a MAID model or just working alongside, how do you feel supported, and do you? And if you don't, what can we do to help advocate?
Yeah. And so there is one question just asking about, yes, if the slides will be made available. Absolutely. So we can send them out as a PDF, and then I'll also have a recording of this session as well available. Another question I have for you, Lauren. So, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into this supports within Ottawa. And do you know of, I'm putting you right on the spot, but do you know of any counseling services or like one-on-one services available for someone?
There are some private counselors that do this. I don't like to name them, only just to protect them as well. But if somebody does want specific information, I would just get in touch with the counselor before sharing their contact information. We know they're few and far between, which is why Bridge C14 and Bereaved Families and Dying with Dignity created that grief and bereavement support program in that more formal sense. And what sometimes the feedback is, even in terms of private counseling, you can go and see a private counselor and there's no problem with that. What sometimes the challenge is, if they don't understand and appreciate what MAID might be, you may spend your first session just talking about MAID and not feeling that support back, or perhaps it's monetary. You don't have the funds to be able to do that. Part of our program here with the Champlain Regional MAID Network and our Ottawa Hospital MAID program is that we've gone out and started educating some of the community organizations, the Distress Center. We've gone out and spoken to clergy, community health centers, just to help them educate, because we know that that's where the feedback and the support is really beneficial. But again, there are still gaps for sure. And it's still an infant, as we would call it. It's still a very new program when we think about it. I think the capacity is there to add on, and I encourage anyone who's interested in creating some sort of program or doing this in private practice. You can always reach out to me, and I can give you sort of some of the feedback I have, or what my experience has been, what some of the positives and some of the challenges are as well in doing this work.
Wonderful. So we're getting to the end of our time. I kind of stole the time and asked my questions. I just wanted to let everyone know our next webinar is going to be on March 18th. And we are going to have Lisa from Jewish Family Services talking about their senior-specific programs that they offer. I mean, maybe that could be a collaboration with MAID and Bridge C14.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for attending today, and thank you again, Lauren, for coming on and talking to us about your passion
Well, thank
project.
you for asking me to be a part of this. I think it's wonderful. Love to talk about it and open myself up to questions if there are any that come in afterwards, or if people want more information. Don't hesitate.
Absolutely. And if you do have questions afterwards, feel free to message me and I can pass them along to Lauren, or that email is available on that previous slide. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.